Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the December 3rd Litchfield Budget Committee meeting. I'm going to call the meeting to order, and we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next up on our agenda this evening is public input.
Andrew, I'm curious about the mask mandate. Are we not adhering to the mask mandate in the meeting?
With the governor, I think we're 6 feet apart, are we not?
Yep.
That's how these are all
Yep.
separated out and how they were arranged.
And you have partitions. You're all set. in
Is the
this
rule
room.
different?
I thought it didn't apply whether,
I don't know, so I'm
Distancing
asking you
thing.
for your,
yeah, we were under the impression we all wore them last night
okay.
for the meeting because we
I'm
thought,
happy to mask up. I was just trying to do it so people could hear me clearly.
yeah, I just think
Fine by me.
given the numbers and where we are, I'd feel more comfortable if everybody masked up.
Sure,
So
happy to.
thank you.
Thank you. Okay, public input.
Mr. Chair, the only person here from the public is Chief Sergeant.
Excellent. So we'll close public input, moving into changes or additions to the agenda, please. I have one addition to the agenda. I'm going to add chairman's comments right before we get into school budget voting. Okay. Next up is correspondence, and I have another laundry list of correspondence tonight, so bear with me here as I just read through it quickly. On November 20th, Mr. Taylor had a request to the school for some budget-related items. On November 20th, Mr. Burke requested to update the budget committee distribution list, which was completed. November 20th, we also received the town budget report. November 22nd, Ms. Forty had some info to share to the budget committee on NHMA. On November 25th, Ms. Forty also shared LMS renovation plans. On November 25th, we received the town budget report. Also on November 25th, Ms. Douglas submitted her school budget questions, which were forwarded to the school. On November 29th, Michelle Flynn shared the draft November 19th minutes, which were distributed to the committee. Also on November 29th, we have the December 3rd meeting agenda shared with the budget committee. On December 1st, we have Ms. Forty's edits to the November 19th minutes. On December 2nd, Mr. Taylor's follow-up request to his original November 20th request, which was the information submitted to the school. And then also on December 2nd, Ms. Forty shared budget and finance recordings and the SB2 timeline. I think that covers it. Does anyone have anything else to add for correspondence this evening?
I did. I asked you to forward a request to the school. I haven't gotten an answer.
Yes, thank you. I missed that one in my analysis. So that was submitted to the school. Anybody else? Okay, I think that covers it. Next up, we did receive the November 19th minutes. I know I personally have not had an opportunity to thoroughly review them. I don't know about anybody else from the committee.
I did review them. I submitted a couple very minor, they were just grammatical or spelling. But if people would feel more comfortable tabling them, that's fine.
Is that all right with the committee if we table it to our next meeting? Okay, so we're going to kick that to our next meeting, please. And next up, before we get into school budget review and voting, I did add an addition to the agenda just for some chairman's comments. Real quickly, on November 19th, I was out of character, and I want to take a moment to publicly apologize both to Mr. Izabicki as well as Dr. Jetty for my, I can't see you, I'm sorry, for my out of character remarks. And personally, I want to apologize not necessarily for the message, but the way I delivered that message. After careful reflection, I do think my message and the intention of my message was on point, but how I delivered it to you was way out of mark. And for that, I am sincerely apologize. Okay. Anything else? All right, let's move into school budget voting. That's the next step in our agenda. And we're going to begin with a section by section budget review. And we're going to kick it off with CHS.
Actually, Andrew, I do have a question before.
Yes.
The question I had when I submitted to the school kind of reflects on how I'd be voting on this.
Yep.
Is there,
We can certainly address that with the school. I know there were several questions submitted by several committee members, and all questions, every question that was submitted was not responded to.
So actually, we never received anything. Every question that was received has been responded to in a document. And those were ones that came from the notes at the last meeting. So I recorded notes, submitted these to our department heads, and we have those in response, but we have not received any questions since that time.
Let's see. I have several emails that I've submitted to the school board, which per the process is also to submit to the SAU.
So they went to the full board or they went to Brian
They went
directly?
to Mr. Burke.
Give me a date on one of them and I'll look it up.
Let's see. 11:20. I know Mr. Taylor submitted some questions. Apologies, I don't have Google on my computer, so I'm going through my phone here. Yes. So, Mr. Taylor, you submitted questions originally on November 18th. That was submitted to, at the time, Ms. Harrison on November 18th, who was the sitting budget committee member at that time.
Was that the first batch that we responded to? Yeah.
And then school budget. Let's see, school budget review questions. I have questions here from, just quickly looking, submitted to the school board. That was on, I'm just looking at Carrie. So Carrie, I know you submitted some questions on November 29th on Sunday, and that was submitted to the school as well. And there are others as well. So there were 3 or 4 emails submitted by committee members that were forwarded. So either way, if you want to ask your questions, perhaps there's a chance that we'll be able to get them answered tonight. Otherwise, we proceed with voting.
we'll just go with voting because there was
Should we have
specific.
from what I'm hearing from Dr. Jetty is that there were some questions that had come up 2 weeks ago at our last meeting.
Mhm.
Would it make sense to give them opportunity to answer those questions before
Sure.
we vote?
Absolutely.
Does that make sense? I know specifically, so we had questions about, I'm thinking like the CTE, but the breakdown of,
I don't have a laundry
Programs
list of
and
those
stuff like
questions,
that.
so if
So
somebody
that-
does.
so that like would affect the CHS voting, I would assume.
So let me try to answer what I have in writing and what we came prepared to respond to tonight. So the first question was on page 9, line 650, and it was regarding the 50 smart music devices at $12 each, which actually comes to $600, not $1,000. And Principal Lonergan said that they've upgraded the smart music subscription in order to use the premium subscription, which is a similar response to what we're going to get from the middle school when we get there. So they've both gone to the from the classic version to the web-based premium version, and that better meets the student needs and the music teachers. And so therefore, using that subscription for the teachers would be a better experience. So he doesn't really answer the question. My gut is the $1,000 is correct, and that the note, which was 50 times 12 equaling 600, is probably the error, and the premium version will be more expensive, hence the $1,000 request.
Okay.
And by the way, the same question was asked at the middle school, and the same answer, that it's the premium version. The second thing that was asked was the CTE cost analysis, and I don't know how to display a document in here, but I'll walk you through it. So basically, in looking at the program, we do send to the 2 CTE centers. So both Alvern and Pinkerton are the centers that we send to. The programs that are available at Alvern really are pretty diverse. I'll read you the list. Building Trades 1, Careers in Education, both 1 and 2, Electrical Technology, Forest Wildlife Management, Health and Science Tech 1 and Tech 2, Heavy Duty Mechanics Tech 1 and Tech 2. The Junior ROTC program is now available to our students because it's now part of the vocational center. Project Lead the Way, Veterinary Science 1 and 2, and also Welding 1 and 2. So we have 34 students who are attending Alvern for those programs. Those are programs that we couldn't replicate at Campbell. They're hands-on, industry-driven programs that lead to industry certification for students and are a good pathway to post-secondary education or mentorships. And 34 students are impacted by that. At Pinkerton, the programs differ a little bit, and the reason that we attend 2 programs is because they offer kind of a different mix. So at Pinkerton, students take architecture and design, automotive systems technician, computer systems networking, cosmetology 1 and 2, electrical technology, environmental science, video production, and welding technology. And in some cases, when you did hear a duplication of that, just keep in mind it's sometimes scheduling. It's available here and there, and this one works better for the schedule, right? So that's why we would choose one or the other. There are 7 students who attend at Alvern. In looking at the cost analysis, the tuition cost at Alvern for one of these courses is $5,979.32. But of that, the Litchfield School District pays $1,494.83 because $4,484.40 is covered by the grants that the federal government provides to support the program. So when I said last time that we are leveraging federal grants in order to access a really high quality individualized program, you can see it's a substantial contribution that comes from the federal grants. There is a transportation charge at Alvern of $108.60 per student per year. And that's to get back and forth. So basically what you end up spending for the Litchfield School District is $1,603.43. Okay, so that's the cost to transport and to educate the child in that program. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. Similar thing at Pinkerton. It's a little bit less expensive at Pinkerton, $5,292. We're paying $1,323 of that, leveraging $3,969 in grants. So we're paying about a third of what's being leveraged, or a quarter, I should say. The transportation charge, however, is higher. It's $936.25. Makes sense, longer trip. So it will cost more to get students back and forth there. So the credit there ends up costing $2,259.25. Now, keep in mind, these are 2 credit classes. So that's an important distinction with this. So here's what I did. I took the Campbell High School per pupil expenditure right off our DOE 25. So that's the number that we report to the state, and the state normalizes to compare to other high schools in the state, right? Last year we paid our per pupil expenditure was $16,250.04. If you think that most high school students take 6, 7, or 8 credits for that cost, right? That means that the per credit expense at 6 credits is $2,708. And if somebody takes all 8 credits, it's $2,031. So keep in mind somewhere between $2,000 and $2,500 per credit. Well, the cost of the CTE credit at Alvern is actually $801.72 because you're leveraging all of those federal funds. And that includes transportation, by the way. And the cost of the CTE credit at Pinkerton is $1,129. So roughly 50% cost per credit because you're leveraging those other funds. So it really does end up, even with transportation included, it ends up being a bargain. And keep in mind that not only is it highly personalized and career oriented, if we canceled it, those students would have to earn the credit back with us, and we'd be paying double the expense for it. So it really is quite a bargain for us to participate in these programs. And we're lucky that they have the diversity of programs available to us through those 2 CTE centers. And I'll be happy to share if somebody wants to look at these numbers, and you can, double check all these. These come right off our figure. Oh, the one thing I did want to add is then every year, these are off what's called a budget estimate. And basically the state is estimating because they don't know exactly how many students are going to complete and stay with a program. So every time a student at a CTE center somewhere in the state drops out, it changes the reimbursement available to districts, right? Because you have fewer students as they unenroll. So what ends up happening is we get a check for $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 in kind of bonus revenue that comes to the district after everything's all shaken out at the end of the year. So all of the numbers I'm quoting for you are rough because there is that sort of final settlement. But the final settlement always results in more money coming to Litchfield, not less money. And so these numbers would only get better as that final calculation arrives back to us. So that's the CTE analysis. I'd happy to take questions or.
Well, thank you. That's helpful for me.
You're not the first budget group that has looked at a big dollar amount in the budget and said, can we trim that? It's easy to do, but when you really do the dollars and cents of it and recognizing that not only do we lose the leverage that we have, we then have to provide in-house at twice the expense. It's really a good deal. So thank you for asking the question because it's an easy number to look at. But once you understand what's behind it, it makes a lot of sense, especially for these students and these programs. I don't know the last time you tried to get an electrician, but it's not easy. So
I guess the only comment that I'd like to make is just that you can't automatically assume that those students then would end up having to come back to Campbell. If one of the programs was not available, then they could certainly take a look at the catalog. And as you mentioned, there is overlap between the two programs. So can't necessarily assume that if seven students weren't able to go to Pinkerton, for example, that meant that 7 students would have to be funded for an education at Campbell, because there's a good chance that they could end up going to Alvern as well.
if they were interested in those programs, that
Again, with
yeah.
the amount of overlap that you had mentioned,
Yep.
there's a good possibility that they could be able to, welding, for example, is offered at both locations.
That's correct. Yep.
Construction is offered at both locations. So there is quite a few in there.
Any other questions? Was there anything else outstanding on CHS?
Yep, on page 12, the textbook replacement. These were the social studies textbooks, and Principal Lonergan did not answer my question to him. So I really can't explain the 5 textbooks that are being replaced each year on that one. He does not have an answer. Or did you have a separate
On
answer from
here,
him?
is that the page 12?
Page 12, yeah.
Yeah. He's got on here, each year, students who lose textbooks, we need to replace them. When we recover the lost books, that money is returned to the general fund, not to the social studies department. We don't know exactly how many textbooks are going to be returned. We do not know how to anticipate how many will be lost. It's generally an approximation of lost books and replacement costs of those texts. If we don't need them, we don't replace them. That was the piece he gave me. Did it not refresh on your?
Yeah, just realized that I did not join the wireless, so I don't have refreshed answers, but I do now. Thank you for that. Page 13, the question was about theater in FY21. What is the plan? So the goal is to have a theater program, and we would like to have 2 productions each year. But given the pandemic, it's hard to predict what's going to run and what's not going to run. Our hope is to have a fall drama and a spring musical, but the theater producer is very interested in hosting these productions, but having difficulty getting the performances pulled off. We had conversation about just not doing the production and working with Litchfield TV that does an awesome job of projecting it, but not having it a live audience, because that would be a little bit more problematic. So the plan is definitely to occur next year. Again, we're hoping that we'll be out of the pandemic by that point. So that's why it's budgeted the way it is. And then on page 16 for supplies, the question was about custom pad folios for youth and government. They're actually student binders that would provide them with an opportunity to be representative as colleagues among their peers when they represent Campbell at the Youth in Government at the state level. So it's a group that's represented Campbell at a very high level and represent the Litchfield student diversity as they work with their peers from around the state. So Youth in Government is run by the YMCA. It's open to schools from across the state. The students actually participate right in the State House, right in the legislative meeting hall, representative hall. And so they're able to participate. So the Padfolio is a programmatic piece that they need in order to participate in the program of Youth in Government. And I don't know, Brian, if that addressed your questions or not.
No, my question was more specific. It was actually, I was looking from 2015 to this last year. Each year, how much money did the school encumber funds? And if they did, how much did they encumber each year?
And that, I can put that data together. I don't have it summarized in a spot, but I do have the audit reports in my drive, so I can pull that together.
Any other questions? No?
I had a question about the library printers, why it went from 2 to 4.
Which page is that on?
It is page 25, line 610, under library. Why are there 4 printers? FY20 included 2, and FY21 or FY21 had 2, whatever. The next year has 4, so we've doubled the amount being budgeted.
They now have 3D printers in the Learning Commons. I think that would be my assumption without going back to the high school. But I do know that they have standard printers for the students, and there is the availability of 3D printers in that library as well.
So that's a guess and not an actual answer. My question is here because this came up at the last meeting. We've had 2 weeks. And I mean, I'd like an actual answer, not as like a
Well,
guess.
we actually, if you're listening to the beginning, I just received your questions like 2 seconds ago. So
My question was posed at the last meeting, so it should have been in your notes as well.
Well-
My email summarized a lot of the questions I had previously asked.
we
So a lot
we
of my
were told
questions
2
were
weeks
not-
ago, we would receive your written questions, and we didn't receive them.
And I
Until just
apologize if I did find that email.
I appreciate that. However, again, my question was asked in person in a meeting. It should not have been a surprise. Thank you.
Carrie, actually, I believe you were just making comments last week or our last meeting. And that was one of them. You said then you would summarize them in questions, which you did. And I apologize that I missed that email and I just forwarded the email.
Thank you.
Anything else on CHS that came up at our last committee meeting on the 19th that were outstanding questions that any committee members had that may not have been answered as of yet? No? We can move into voting then for CHS. I'll entertain any motions that the committee members have.
I'd like to make a motion. Under CHS Business Education on page 2, line item number 641, textbooks new. This was part of the initial communication that I had made. Mr. Isbicki had replied back that that could actually be reduced to $500. So the motion is to reduce that line item from $1,000 down to $500.
We have a motion by Mr. Taylor. Do we have a second? Second by Mr. Hodgkins. Further questions? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. We'll start with Mr. Hayes.
Yeah.
Ms. Douglas.
Yes.
We'll start with Mr. Hodgkins.
Yes.
Mr. Leary,
Yes.
Mr. Taylor,
Aye.
Mr. Sun.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Ms. Forty
Yes.
and Mr. Burke.
Nay.
So that carries 810. Okay, any additional motions on CHS?
I have another motion. On page 5, under CHS Physical Education, line 430, repairs and maintenance for the ropes course. Would like to make a motion to reduce that line item by $1,300.
We have a motion by Mr. Taylor. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Hodgkins. Mr. Taylor?
Just based on our discussion a couple of weeks ago, the fact that there's 20 students and 10 days of activities, it seems like not a great investment for $1,300, and the fact that insurance for something like that is going to continue to rise, just like it's noted by the school district.
Okay. Further questions, commentary?
More of a question, if that's a cost that the school isn't able to incur, would they have to eliminate that from the physical education program, the ropes course? If we're not able to complete the safety inspection and provide proper insurance, would that not be an option for students to use that as a part of physical education?
That would be a decision at the school level where we would, if it's part of the curriculum, we offer it. We find the money from somewhere else.
Okay. Hearing no further commentary, we'll move it into vote. Mr. Hayes?
Yeah.
Ms. Douglas?
I'm gonna vote no on this one.
Okay. Mr. Hodgkins?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Mr. Sun?
No.
I am also a no. Ms. Forty?
No.
And
No.
Mr. Burke. So that fails 4-5-0. Good. Any other motions on CHS?
I do, Mr. Chairman, but certainly want to make sure that others have a chance to be able to speak as well. I don't want to monopolize the time.
You're good.
I encourage you to make yours. I would make a bottom line, so it's good to know where yours are coming from.
Okay, sounds good. All right, page 11, make a motion on line item 640, textbook replacement for AP Physics, $1,600.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Taylor. Second by Mr. Hodgkins, okay?
So as we spoke about a couple of weeks ago, Mr. Isbicki had responded to my initial question saying that it was acceptable to delete because it was duplicated by line item 641 as well.
Okay. Further questions? Mr. Hayes? Move into vote. Do you support that motion?
Ask him again.
Mr. Hayes, do you support that motion?
Yep, I do.
Thank you. Ms. Douglas?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Hodgkins?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Mr. Sun?
Yes.
I am also a yes. Ms. Forty?
Yes.
No.
Mr. Burke. Okay, so that carries 8-1-0.
All right. Next motion, still on page 11, line item number 641, textbooks new, AP Physics for $2,250. Motion to delete that down to 0.
We have a motion by Mr. Taylor. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Leary. Go ahead.
Again, just based on the cost incurred certainly over the last couple of years, adding in additional AP classes, I just feel that the spend in this particular area could be tempered and scheduled out a little bit further. Certainly with a reduction in revenues upcoming, it's not the best time to try to expand services that we don't have to.
So if I can understand correctly, you're looking to eliminate AP Physics as a course offered to the school.
No, That's up to you as to what you want to do. I'm
You're
making a
taking- you're
motion
taking the
to
AP physics
reduce
books-
the
you're taking AP
textbooks.
physics books away.
Yes, I will be taking the books away, and then I will also be looking to make another motion around AP Physics as well. But
Right, so
as
you're
you've
look-
clearly
you're looking to
identified,
you're looking
hold on
to
a second,
eliminate-
Mr. Burke, let me finish.
Yeah.
As you've clearly identified before, I am not here to go ahead and make policy. However, if I do go ahead and see things that I don't feel like is a good expenditure, I am going to go
I
ahead.
just want to make sure it's on record that you're eliminating AP Physics.
No,
Or attempting to
no, I am
eliminate-
not.
It's semantics, okay? You
No.
take away the books, you take away the payroll, you take away it all, you're taking
We
away.
have a motion and a second. Let's vote.
I would say to speak against the motion, I think that we need to invest in AP courses. We need our students to be competitive and to have the course offerings that match what they need going into further education.
Question for the school: have we had students request this course? Is that what drove kind of the need for this? Is there students that have asked for this kind of driving the enrollment and the course request?
So this would be a course request to come because it hasn't been
It's not
offered yet, but there has been feedback from alumni that this would be something they would have liked to take. And then the science department has looked at the overall program they offer and the AP offerings there and feel that AP Physics is the next option that would best suit.
And this 2250, how many books would that purchase approximately?
Well, so I'm doing this from memory. I mean, they're really college level textbooks, so they can run almost $200 a piece. So
Okay.
you really could be looking, I don't know exactly how they budgeted it, but
Probably
it's,
10 to 15 books is safe, right?
it's
Okay.
probably a safe number. And that's about what you would get with an AP course of this nature.
Thanks.
To the question about whether or not it's a request, I can tell you that one of the reasons why my son is and moved to another school is because of the lack of investment in these types of classes. I know a lot of other parents who are in a similar position. So to see Litchfield to invest in these classes gives pause to parents like me who are looking at other schools to provide these courses. And then you'll retain more of the higher learners, which will improve the overall standings and reputation of this school. So I see it as an investment in the long term, that you'll retain more students and parents won't be forced to look at other options for these classes. So I'm going to vote no.
Do we have adequate staff to teach this class?
So the science department is on a rotation with the AP offerings. So AP, there was a little bit of a dust up this year over AP Bio and AP Chemistry because they were both simultaneously offered and it sort of split the student body. We were able to figure that one out, but the science department is now on a rotation of which runs when so that we cannot overlap. So physics, it doesn't compete in the same way. Let's put it at that. It's a little bit of a different animal to offer. And so there has to be the need. We're not going to run it with 3 kids. That's just not going to run. So there has to be an ability to schedule and to run it.
Thank you.
If I could just make a follow-up comment to Ms. Douglas, it's not that I don't think that it is important. It's just that at this point with the number of more advanced classes that are occurring and the fact that there is going to be less revenue coming in, at some point you just need to stop that curve of growth. Now, we come back with revenues back to where they're supposed to be post-pandemic. I'd have no problem supporting it. It's just, why are you spending more money when you have less coming in, when you absolutely positively don't have to? I mean, you could write a blank check for as many things as you want, but sooner or later, it has to be paid for.
I appreciate that, but if we look at the big term, how much does it cost to run this class? And how much revenue is lost for every student that chooses to take these courses at another school? For example, I pulled my son, and with him goes the federal and state money that is associated with him as a student to Campbell or to the district. If more parents make the choice my family made, then we will actually lose more revenue. So to provide these courses to these students will actually improve your enrollment, which also improves the revenue. So it's an investment, in my opinion.
Okay. Let's move it to vote. I will start with Mr. Hayes.
I'm going to vote no on this one.
Okay, Ms. Douglas? No. Mr. Hodgkins?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Mr. Leary?
No.
No. Mr. Taylor? Mr. Taylor? Aye. Mr. Sun?
No.
I am also a no. Ms. Forty?
No.
Mr. Burke?
Nay.
Nay. So that fails 2-7-0.
All right. Next motion would be for page 11, line item 734, equipment addition of AP Physics for $2,500. Motion to reduce that to zero.
We have a motion by Mr. Taylor. Is there a second?
Second
Second by Mr. Leary.
I think we pretty much have discussed what needs to be discussed. Happy to have it go to a vote.
Any questions before we move it to vote? All right, Mr. Hayes,
No.
Ms. Douglas,
No.
Mr. Hodgkins,
Yes.
Mr. Leary,
No.
Mr. Taylor,
Aye.
Mr. Sun?
No.
I am also a no. Ms. Forty,
No.
Mr. Burke. All right, that one also fails 2-7-0.
All right. Next motion would be on page 12. Under CHS Social Studies, 610 supplies, 200 pocket constitutions, reduce that line item from $200 to zero.
We have a motion by Mr. Taylor. Second? Second by Mr. Hodgkins. Mr. Taylor.
In the case that everybody has a Chromebook at this point, I think it's pretty easy to be able to find the Constitution online. Just consistent across many of the different items as far as having printed out items when a Chromebook is readily available.
Further discussion, please, Dr. Jettie.
So the true constitutionist among us would point out that if it isn't printed on paper, it's not real. You can put whatever you want online and you can tell people what their constitutional rights are online, but unless it's printed on paper as an official copy of the Constitution, and words matter, words matter. So I'm just saying that providing our students with a paper copy of the U.S. Constitution has been a long tradition, and true conservatives understand that.
Is that something that the students keep and take with them? That's
It is.
it's a consumable.
I have a copy. Yep. They're very nice little handheld copies of the U.S. Constitution.
Okay. Further discussion. All right, Mr. Hayes.
Reduce it to zero.
I'm sorry?
That was the motion, yeah.
He was asking to clarify.
Oh, yes, the motion is to reduce line 610 on page 12 to, from $200 to $0.
To clarify, it's to cut 200, right? It's a $579.
Out of the total, excuse me, out of the total line, yes, yep, to reduce that line by $200. Thank you. Mr. Hayes?
Yes.
Yes. Ms. Douglas?
As a constitutionalist, I'm perfectly comfortable with it being online, so I'm going to vote yes.
Yes. Okay. Mr. Hodgkins?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Leary?
No.
No. Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Mr. Sun?
No.
I am also a no. Ms. Forty?
No.
Mr. Burke?
Nay.
Nay. That fails 4-5-0.
All right. Next one would be on page 14, line item 641, textbooks new. Reduce that line from $2,075 to zero.
So those are the computer
I'm sorry, where are we?
This is page 14,
Yep.
line 641, textbooks new,
Oh, down the bottom there. Sorry. Yeah.
$2,075 reduced to zero.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Taylor. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Leary. Go ahead.
Again, similar to what I had mentioned earlier, as far as physics is concerned, just the adding of new courses and expenses in a time of declining revenues, I can't support.
Clarifying question: are these new courses or new textbooks for a current course?
Those are existing courses, and they are new textbooks for those courses.
So I'm sorry, Dr. Chetty. I must have misunderstood. I thought that when I had submitted the question to Mr. Zbicki that it was, I had a note that we were adding an AP computer science class. Is that not the case?
We currently have AP Computer Science.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Okay, my apologies. I must have misunderstood the conversation. Mr. Chairman, can I withdraw my motion?
Yep.
Yes.
Motion second have been withdrawn. Okay. Further motions on CHS.
I have another one.
Please.
On page 21, line item 734, equipment additional.
Okay.
Reduce that line item from $4,000 to zero.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Taylor. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Forty. Okay. Please.
Again, based on declining revenues, I don't feel that it's the best time to go ahead and add additional equipment. If it was, we're certainly replacing existing equipment and performing maintenance, adding more stuff into the mix at a time that revenue is declining is just not responsible.
Mr. Burke or Dr. Jetty?
I understand this equipment is to get the kettlebells off the ground. Because right now there's no place for storage.
that's definitely a part of it. It's actually hazardous in there to have equipment left around, tripping hazard, et cetera. So the athletic director was trying to get the rack for the kettlebells so that they could be stored off the floor. But there's also some new equipment, it looks like benches and plyo boxes. So in some cases, I wish I could promise you that that was replacement of outdated or dangerous equipment. I can't say that for sure. But it is an investment in the weight room, which is pretty heavily used by the students, both athletics and in the PE classes. And if you look at the historical numbers, you'll see there hasn't been a huge investment in that area. So at some point, you do have to keep up with that equipment.
So just to clarify that, I would assume that that would be line 738, equipment replacement, as far as keeping up on equipment. The equipment additional would be net new equipment, correct?
It's interesting. This is not new equipment. This is
Because you have weight room equipment replacement items as far as bars, bands, benches, things of that nature. But then this particular one is specifically new weight room equipment.
Yep, the storage is definitely new. I'm pausing because it's under the word additional and not new, which I'm just trying to make sure I understand exactly why it has that heading. But so certainly, if there's never been storage for the kettlebells, that would be new equipment.
Sure.
Yep, that makes sense.
According to the notes, it does say lighter kettleballs, not kettlebell storage.
They're building up.
I think
the
that's
set
the
and
I think that's the
different
off-floor bar
sizes of
storage.
things, so there's an investment.
I'm
each
assuming.
year.
So it's not quite clear.
Okay. Further questions? We'll move it to vote. Mr. Hayes?
Yes.
Ms. Douglas?
I'm voting yes. I think there are other ways of funding this, such as Donors Choose or some other kind of program. So I'm going to vote yes towards the cut.
Thank you. Mr. Hodgkins?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Mr. Sun?
Yes.
I am also a yes. Ms. Forty?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Nay.
That one passes 8-1-0. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I have another motion.
Please.
Page 26, line 643, periodicals print
Okay.
in the amount of $1,286. Motion to reduce that to zero.
We have a motion by Mr. Taylor. I will second. Go ahead.
Reason for the motion, again, Chromebooks, the fact that newspapers and magazines and things of that nature, they should be able to find everything that they need via the Chromebook.
Well, you can find it on the Chromebook as long as you pay for the subscription. That's part of what this periodical line is. If you look, it's for newspapers for $315. So without that, you can't get them on your Google. on the
You can
Chromebook.
find quite a bit of information as far as the
Just
newspaper.
like-
Not every newspaper is behind paywall.
Newspapers what?
Not every newspaper is behind paywall.
I understand. But not all of the circulation periodicals that are here can you get on your Chromebook. You make it sound like everything's on the Chromebook. It's not.
Well, I have found that there has been very little information in terms of a periodical or a newspaper that I have not been able to find online.
Mr. Sun?
Yeah, I understand Mr. Taylor's thought process behind this. I do know that there are some publications and newspaper subscriptions that do have a cost associated with them, while others do not. I think where I lean on this is not necessarily from online versus print and cost associated with that. It's the idea that not every student reads best in front of a digital device, and to have that option for the print for those that need it, or that's their preferred way to read. That's the reason I would leave this in there based on that.
I have a question. Would this not be something we could coordinate possibly with the library, the public library? Because they have quite a few subscriptions, and if we push library cards or other stuff, it seems like an opportunity to work together to utilize something that the town already pays for. So my question would be, is that something that we could look to?
The thing is that the students are in school. They're in the Learning Commons when they utilize the periodicals.
I'm assuming, I think she's probably talking more about the digital subscriptions to that. Is there an opportunity to cost save between the town and the school and looking at that? Is that what you're talking about, Carrie?
Sure. I mean, I'm not very, I don't use a lot of the online periodicals from the library, but when I log in, it looks as though there are options. So if there was a way to work with the library, I mean, we enroll kids in library cards in first grade. So if there's an opportunity to log into that website from the school, taxpayers are already funding a lot of these periodical subscriptions. Why fund them twice? It's an opportunity, in my opinion, to collaborate together.
Okay. Further questions?
The one I would add would be with the line right below it, that's the information access fees. Doesn't that cover everything that you need with this line, or is this something completely different that is not involved
This
with
is
that?
paper print versus
Yep.
online subscription,
Yeah,
right?
but you said you need to have an online subscription to get the paper
Yep.
or vice versa. Is it tied together or is it separate or?
Separate.
It's separate? Okay. Thank you.
And if you read the note in the print, it does say that it looks like they've looked at the online costs and they're actually more expensive. Many of the publishers now have caught on that charging more for the online, or they'll charge more for the online, give you the print for free, quote unquote. So it's just something to keep in mind. But I do appreciate the idea of working with the town library. And if there are resources that are available, we should make sure that the high school students know of those. And we certainly can do that.
I think that's a great takeaway for not just the high school, but the entire district, for the libraries to coordinate with the town. And there's potential cost savings there on both sides.
Just one last comment that I'll make.
Please.
Unfortunately, it's difficult with these magazines and newspapers to figure out as far as what the utilization is. It's not like a library book where you're checking it in and checking it out to be able to get an idea in terms of how much utilization there is. So
Yeah. Okay. I will move it to vote. Mr. Hayes?
Yeah.
Ms. Douglas?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Hodgkins?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
No.
Mr. Taylor?
aye.
Mr. Sun?
No.
I am also a no on this one. Ms. Forty?
No.
And Mr. Burke?
Nay.
Nay. So that fails 4-5-0. I appreciate the spirit of that discussion, though, on that motion. Thank you very much.
Agree.
Okay.
All right. Mr. Chairman, I have another motion.
Please.
On page 32. Vocational transport, line 519, transportation. Reduce that line by $28,161.
28,161. We have a motion by Mr. Taylor. I will second this one. Please.
In taking a look at the cost of 7 students going over to Pinkerton and the potential overlap, I think that it's not a great use of the funds. Again, I understand what Dr. Jetty mentions in terms of being able to take advantage of federal grants, but you know what? Even if I get some sort of a grant to buy a Tesla, there's still going to be a certain cost that I'm going to have to pay out of pocket, even though the government covered most of it, that I may not be able to afford. I just look at it that transportation back and forth to a location that historically has low numbers and the ability for those folks to go other places justifies the cut. I'll also just say, because I'm sure that this will come up as well, this is not a vote against CTE programs. Completely support and understand them. I just think that in this case, for a school of our size, that type of redundancy is not needed.
Could I get you to, just to repeat the amount?
Yep. $28,161. And how I came to that particular number was based on the notes that were here, because I didn't have anything else to go on besides this, that there are 8 shuttle trips at $321.84 for 175 days. So if Pinkerton was taken out, then it would be 4 shuttle trips for 175 days. If the school district would like to give me accurate numbers in terms of what the Pinkerton bus cost specifically is, instead, I would be happy to adjust my motion to cut at that particular amount.
I think as Dr. Jetty said, there is some overlap, but there's different courses offered at different schools. And that's the reason why we're utilizing 2 different schools for the CTE programs. So you're eliminating some of the CTE program.
I do want to mention too, one piece that Dr. J didn't mention is that because it is leveraged by federal funds, there may be something that's not offered at one of those 2 schools that might be offered in another CTE location anywhere in the state
I understand.
that we would be responsible for paying transportation to.
Mhm.
So I just want to have that out there, that they could pick a program in Laconia.
Yep.
And we'd still have to pay for the bus. So it's just want to make that point.
Okay, further questions? All right, I'll call it to vote. Mr. Hayes?
No on this one.
No. Ms. Douglas?
No.
Mr. Hodgkins?
Yep.
Yes. Mr. Leary? No. Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Mr. Sun?
No.
I am also a no. Ms. Forty?
No.
Nay.
Mr. Burke? All right, so that also fails 2-7-0. Once again, thank you for the debate and the motion. Okay. Any further motions on CHS?
Mr. Chair, as we did with the town, on the town level, we travel in conferences.
Yes.
Specifically, you have, and this is broken up into several pages, but on page 19 and also on page 29, it's 4,200 on page 29, line 580, I'm sorry. And it's 1,200 on page 19. I would make a motion to
Well-
reduce that by 50% as we do.
Before we make a motion on travel and conference, I am planning on showcasing at the end, when we do a bottom line,
Very
all
well.
of the travel and conference, and we can address
Very
it
well.
then if that's okay with the committee.
I will draw, sorry.
Okay, thank you. Further questions, motions? Ms. Douglas, Mr. Hayes?
Before we leave,
Um,
All set.
All set?
I was going to make a motion based on what's already been made. I would make a motion to reduce the bottom line of CHS by $15,000.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Douglas. Is there a second?
Yep.
Second by Mr. Hodgkins, okay?
And
Ms.
looking
Douglas.
at it line by line, we have a number of accounts, supplies, and other activities that seem to be historically overfunded. So it's not that they're not necessary or needed, but supplies tend to be overfunded. And then there's some other items that obviously the school would have the ability to reallocate to the best of their knowledge and ability. But in the grand scheme of things, I believe that the CHS budget is capable of absorbing a $15,000 reduction between the supply. And again, I did not factor in travel and conferences. So that's where I'm at.
Clarifying question. Ms. Douglas, is that 15,000 in addition to what we've already reduced thus far?
Yes, because my original number was much higher.
Mr. Isbicki, how much have we reduced already from CHS?
$6,100.
Right, my original number was 36,000, so between 15 and 6. Based on discussions, I'm more comfortable with a slightly lower number, but I do believe that a reduction is due.
Thank you.
Okay. Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll move it to vote. Mr. Hayes,
Aye.
Ms. Douglas,
Aye.
Mr. Hodgkins,
Aye.
Mr. Leary,
Aye.
Mr. Taylor,
Aye.
Mr. Sun.
Nay.
I am an aye. Ms. Forty,
No.
Mr. Burke?
Nay.
Nay. That carries 6-3-0. Okay. I think that concludes CHS, and we'll move on to LMS. Were there further comments or questions on CHS before doing so? Okay, we'll shift gears into LMS, please. Are there any motions?
Chairman, I have a motion on page 7, line 643, periodicals in print. A reduction on that line by $1,000 to bring it to 0.
We have a motion by Mr. Taylor. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Hodgkins.
Same philosophy as we talked about for CHS.
Okay. Further discussion?
Does Mr. Leckliter want to say anything? He looks like he's dialed in.
Yes. Mr. Leclerc, you're welcome to comment.
Maybe not.
I would just, I'm not sure if he can hear us, but it's the same response that we gave earlier. I think there is an opportunity for us to look at sharing with the town. But, even online newspaper subscription costs the same amount, whether you read it online or read it in the newspaper. You end up paying the same amount. So,
Okay. I'll move it to vote. Mr. Hayes,
I'm an aye.
Ms. Douglas,
Aye.
Mr. Hodgkins,
Aye.
Mr. Leary,
No.
Mr. Taylor,
Aye.
Mr. Sun.
No.
I'm a no. Ms. Forty
No.
and
Nay.
Ms. Burke. Okay, that fails 4-5-0.
I apologize. My technology was not working there, so I am now in.
I was just going to comment that I appreciate the consistency in the votes.
Further motions on LMS, please.
I do.
Please.
I would like to reduce the overall budget for LMS by $14,500.
So we have a bottom line budget reduction by Mr. Hodgkins by 14,500.
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Leary. Okay, go ahead.
All it is adding in the budget increases for this year. I mean, people are hurting and not taking away money. It's just stopping the adding from that they added in for the new budget. Giving them the old budget. I don't think they need to have any more money.
So Brian, I'm not sure what you're talking about. Ads, this budget is $1,391 less than last year's budget. So I don't know where your additions are.
All I'm doing is I'm adding up the budget
Yeah,
increases.
the number's right here on the bottom, last page.
I got you.
Okay, but you're saying.
I'm
that
adding
these
what I
increases-
find. If you don't like it, don't vote for it.
All right.
But you're doing a bottom line budget.
Yes, I am.
Not in anything in particular, just bottom line.
I am. You know why? Because the
Because-
school,
because of
hold on.
additions,
You asked me a
and there are
question,
no
so let me
additions.
answer it. The school board has on several occasions said, we have no right to tell you what to spend your money on, which is fine. So I'm taking off the top. You decide where you want to take it from. See, the school doesn't seem like they have to adjust their belts on anything, ever. All you do is keep coming in here and asking for more money on top of more money on top of more money.
Things cost more and more and more and more
Right,
as time
and
goes on.
the public doesn't have more money to keep spending and spending and spending. But apparently you guys don't understand that.
Well, what you ought to do then is make the cuts from the lines. You want to make them not a bottom line cut. That's what you ought to do. Is
What's the point of doing a line by
how
line
less what
item?
you
So-
want to cut.
So we have a
Why should
motion
I do
and we
that?
have a
And you
second.
guys don't care.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I do agree with Mr. Burke that this is actually, this budget's already down from year over year. So just to clarify that.
No,
point.
and I get that. This is how much I want to cut.
Absolutely. Okay, further questions? Comments?
I just think we if there's any way that we can refrain from like statements like that people don't care or they're not trying, like, look, we're all practically volunteers at this. We're trying to you just have cross purposes sometimes.
Right, but when I get an attitude from the school, I'm
Oh,
gonna
I
respond to it.
completely I see where the attitudes are all flying, and that wasn't directed at any in particular person. That's everybody. We need to be keeping it on the numbers, not personality conflicts or any of that other BS drama. Like, it's not worth it.
I didn't say it this week.
I did.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Thank you, Ms. Floyd. All right, let's call this one to vote. Mr. Hayes,
Now, what is the amount that is, what's the motion for?
the motion is for a bottom line reduction to LMS for $14,500.
I'm going to vote yes on that because I think there is room to reduce, but going line by line, I think is time consuming, and I think this is a step in the right direction.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hodgins?
Yep.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Mr. Sun?
No.
I am an aye here. Ms. Forty?
No, Miss Douglas is.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Douglas.
No problems. I was gonna say it's a little too rich for my blood, so I'm voting no.
No? Okay. And Mr. Burke? All right, that one passes 5-4. Okay. Further motions on LMS, please. Okay, hearing none, we'll shift gears into GMS. Any motions? Hearing none. Ms. Douglas, Mr. Hayes, all good?
All good.
No, I had a motion. I just was trying to read my notes.
Sure.
Let's see. I was gonna make a motion to reduce bottom line of GMS by, where's my note? By $2,000.
Okay. We have a motion by Ms. Douglas. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Hodgkins. Go ahead.
All right, hold on, I'm trying to, I had my notes, I'm not sure what I was thinking. So I have one that I was talking about here, a lot of them are again supplies. I have a note, well, there's a fund for 20 classrooms, but 20 classrooms from 1 to 4, but 18 teachers are budgeted. So a reduction of $180 there, as well as some miscellaneous supplies. Just again, it's not saying that anything there is not needed. It's just that I believe that there is room within supplies and other line items for a minor reduction.
Okay, thank you. Further comment? Hearing none. Mr. Hayes,
I'm going to vote aye.
Ms. Douglas,
Aye.
Mr. Hodgkins,
Aye.
Mr. Leary,
Aye.
Mr. Taylor,
Aye.
Mr. Sun.
Aye.
I am an aye. Ms. Forty?
No.
No.
Nay.
Okay, that passes 7-0. Okay, anything else on GMS? Okay. Hearing none, we have curriculum up next. Motions on curriculum.
I had some questions that were included when I submitted them. One had to do with the vertical alignment. What is that and why did it increase from 10,000 to 13,000? And then my email included questions regarding tuition reimbursement for courses. Because we fund at the contractual maximum, but we rarely actually come close to that. So I wanted to get an input from the school regarding that and the funding mechanism, whether it makes sense to continue with the 3-year average of actual spend with the consideration that given the amount of money that's returned each year, that if we actually go over and get closer by a little, that there's room in the budget to absorb it, or is there another way of funding it? Because funding it at the maximum exposure is overtaxing the residents.
So I heard two questions. I'll take them one at a time. So the first is about vertical alignment. So that's talking about the curriculum going year to year and making sure that skills students learn in grade 2 is matched up to 3 to 4, et cetera. And you'll also notice this talks about special needs students, making sure that that is incorporated and is also aligned in a vertical progressive way. So I can tell you that the curriculum director, Mary Woodman, has spent a lot of time paying attention to the vertical alignment of curricula. It's something that happens in every district. It's routine work. And so she is trying to make sure that it's as aligned and articulated as possible. So there's an expense that goes with that. And it's really for making sure that it's not, curriculum alignment is not something that occurs during a school day because you have to get teachers from various buildings together. We can do some of it on PD days, but a lot of the PD days now, I mean, the mandates that have come down from the state that have chewed up PD time that we have in the contracts have made it more difficult to get people together to do this. So this ends up being, in many cases, summer work in order to make sure that we can have our staff together in one spot working on that vertical articulation. You know, 4th to 5th grade is a hurdle. 8th to 9th is a hurdle in terms of getting people together. We used to do the 2-hour late starts, but the problem is that the late start at each building differs by over an hour. So by the time you put people together for vertical work, they had about 45 minutes to work together, and then they had to get back to one school was opening and another, so it's just, it can't be done during the school day. So that explains a little bit of the 13,000. Where's the other line that you're asking about, the course reimbursement one?
I appreciate you explaining what it is. I'm not sure I understand why it jumped from 10,000 to 13. But the other ones I was looking at are 270 and 271.
Yeah, the reason for the jump is there's just more to be done. There's more vertical work that needs to be accomplished. So we've incorporated that into our Live to Learn Academy in the summer. And some of that is grant funded, not all. And so sort of a partnership between the taxpayers and the grants to fund the amount of work that needs to be done. So there is more to do. And then the others, you're right, those are contractual amounts. Those $2 amounts, $180 for workshops and $360 for courses, are right out of the CBA. You're correct that we're underspending those, but we're contractually obligated to pay it if everybody took advantage of those courses too. So we do budget at the full amount because there's that potential that everybody is entitled to that money and could tap into that.
I appreciate that. I looked back through my past binders because I have a lot of them. And they are like FY19, we over budgeted by $15,000. FY20, $21,000. That's real money that adds up. So if we look at the 3-year average, we're not coming close. So, but we also return a lot of money at the end of every year. So while we could fund, my opinion is we should fund at the 3-year average with the understanding that there's enough money that we could cover any additional exposure should we actually experience it, because we're not.
And what is that 3-year average number?
I was proposing a reduction of $4,000 on 270 and $10,000 on 271. Because like $14,000, given the amount of money that we expect to have at the end of every year, I think in the really off chance that we even come close, there's more than enough money left over.
Further discussion?
How much was the motion for?
There was no motion. It was a discussion, unless Ms. Douglas is making a motion.
No, I just wanted to bring it up because I did submit the questions, and if there was something, I mean, I understand why we budget where we are, and I'm not faulting the school board for that at all. I mean, that's their job, it's how they should budget it. But as a budget committee, we need to look at what the actual expenses are. How much do we actually pay year over year on these line items, and make the necessary adjustments. So for 270, I would make a motion to reduce by $4,000.
All right, now we have a motion by Ms. Douglas. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
A second by Mr. Hayes, okay?
So I'll just note that I know 270 was reduced with Ms. Weidman coming on board and many of the changes that she has done. Because if you see, it was 12 and it's down to 8. I know that this is something that she was looking at. I seem to recall a conversation about getting the budgeted lines more in line with what's actual, but also with then for 271, the course reimbursement, trying to get the staff members to take advantage of what they are entitled to. So I do think we're going to see 271 continue to increase. I think the pandemic has impacted that. And I would just like to, just noting on 270 that it used to be budgeted higher. It has come down. So that is something that they are actively looking at.
I appreciate that. But if you look at it, the actual expenses in FY 2018 were 7438, FY 19 3815, FY 20 0, year to date 0. So
FY20 is also an anomaly in this whole budget, right? So,
well, I understand that. And we actually, from my understanding, we included a lot of the PD as part of a way to use hours when we were shut down. So I get that and I appreciate that, but 2019 does not have the same explanation.
Yeah.
So even reducing it, and again, I recognize we're having a push, but we return a significant amount of money every year. And so if it goes to $5,000, I'm absolutely confident that the school board could find an additional $1,000 in the budget. I think $4,000 is reasonable. And I think that given the number of people who are experiencing hardship coming up, we need to make the reductions where we can. And I think this is perfectly reasonable.
okay. I think, my opinion is in looking at the past on 270, I think 8,000 is probably a very realistic number. The question for me comes down to, is it actually going to be spent in 20? For 271, and if there was a motion for 10,000, I mean, that's a motion I could get behind because I do think that one is over budgeted. But that's my.
If I'm understanding Dr. Jetty correctly, 271, although we do over budget for that, is per the CBA.
It's per the CBA, but then it becomes the question of, is it actually ever used to its full capacity? Right. And the answer to that is no.
Mhm.
And what's the correct number to budget? So. Okay, so we have a motion and a second for a $4,000 reduction on 270. Further question? Discussion? All right, we'll move it to vote. Mr. Hayes,
Yes.
Ms. Douglas,
Yes.
Mr. Hodgkins,
Yes.
Mr. Leary,
Yes.
Mr. Taylor,
Hi.
Mr. Sun.
No.
I am a no on this one. Ms. Forty.
No.
Mr. Burke.
Nay.
No. That passes 5-4. Okay.
I will make a motion to reduce 271 by $10,000.
We have a motion by Ms. Douglas. I will second this one. Further discussion.
It's similar rationale. Just looking through it, like I said, we had one year it was over budgeted by 15,000. We had another year it was over budgeted by 21,000. I mean, I understand, like I said, I do not fault the school board for budgeting, their budgeting methodology. It makes sense. The problem is, does it make sense, or the one we have to consider as a budget committee, is does it make sense to fund it at the maximum exposure? And my contention is no, it is not, because we do not actually see those numbers. And if there is an anomaly and we do actually manage to exceed, or to come within under $10,000 of our number, there's again, I believe, enough money in the budget that we could absorb that cost. But I don't think it's right or fair to continue to tax residents for courses that aren't being, that teachers, for whatever reason, do not have the ability to use. Because otherwise it ends up in the general fund and it funds other projects. I think the money's better left with the taxpayer.
Thank you. Further questions, comments?
Question for how LEA members, how do they choose to sign up for these courses and workshops? Is that something that's kind of at their own discretion, or are there things that are pushed out at the district level? Combination of the two?
So this is contractual money that the teachers decide. So it's for their own professional development, college courses, et cetera. And they sign up for the course. It has to go through a course approval process. Workshops also have to go through a workshop approval process where the supervisor has to approve it. So you can't take something that's, just a fun course, right? It's got to be tied to your professional development goals. And then that's what they have access to. And the LEA actually sets rules on how they do the reimbursement. So there's a capped amount that people are initially available to have. And then at the end of the year, if people didn't get fully reimbursed for courses that they took, so say you took 2 college courses, you might be paying one out of pocket, but then the money is available to go back to help offset those costs. So once we're sure that the pool is able to be spread around among everybody who's asking, then there's additional reimbursement available. So I tell you that because it really, you can see we're not using it all, so it takes care of everybody's requests.
Correct.
And but
yeah,
we have people who come along, and if you're taking a fall course, a spring course, and 2 summer courses, you can add up to $10,000 pretty quickly with that type of an ask, right? So depending on what university you're going to. Yep. But it has been, the point is well made that it has been ample to cover the requests.
And I think that, and thank you, I appreciate that. I think that's where my look has been the historical spend of this. And I just wanted to kind of understand from the teacher side of it, what's that process that they go through to sign up for these courses. So thank you.
And just one other point to make is that as the staff becomes earlier in their career, they're more apt to take the courses. So, we do have and have had a number of significant retirements in the district. So, if somebody goes out at year 35 of teaching and is replaced with somebody at year 1, there's a greater likelihood that that person has taken a course. So that's just another, you have to keep that in mind when you're looking at history, that things do shift and change.
Good point.
Can I add one thing?
I appreciate that, but my reduction still brings it significantly higher than what we've spent ever, at least from the binders I have.
Yep.
So I think there's a significant room for growth, but I think it's fair to split that savings between the taxpayers and while still providing an opportunity for teachers to take the courses they need and would like to take.
Mr. Hodgins?
This is kind of for everything that comes up that's contractually obligated. we may not be able to tell the school board how to negotiate a contract. However, when it comes, instead of just rubber stamping everything because it's contractually obligated, why do we stop, at least cut back on some of the funding and let them fund it? If they want to negotiate this in, then they can fund it. But we shouldn't have to say, yeah, we have to do it because it's contractually obligated, because we shouldn't have to. We're a separate organization. So that just goes to the contractual part.
Further questions or debate before we move it to vote?
No, I appreciate Ms. Douglas sharing her analysis, and I might be inclined to agree with this one. However, I just want to explain that I'm voting against it because I don't agree with some of the deeper cuts in other areas. So for looking bottom line, that's what I have to do.
Okay. All right, I'll call the vote. Mr. Hayes,
Aye.
Ms. Douglas,
Aye.
Mr. Hodgkins,
Aye.
Mr. Leary,
Aye.
Mr. Taylor,
Aye.
Mr. Sun.
Yes.
I am a yes. Ms. Forty,
No.
Mr. Burke.
Aye.
That passes 7-2. Okay. Anything else on curriculum? Hearing none, we'll shift gears into technology, please. And I know we still have Mr. Pelletier with us if there are any questions. Are there any motions from the committee members on technology?
I have a motion on page 1, line item 734, equipment additional. Looking to reduce that line item by $8,800.
And this is the second line, 734, I'm assuming. First one is zeroed out already.
Oh, under LMS, is that? No, that's
No,
zero as well.
IT, page 1,
IT page 1 under
fifth grade
LMS.
class.
734.
The bottom
The
of the
bottom
page,
one.
right? There are two 734s on that page.
Okay, yes, the bottom one.
Bottom one, yep.
Got it. Yep. So this is
That's already been
8,000.
removed.
It's already been encumbered, correct?
The bottom one?
No. The encumbered one is.
That's the one at GMS, right?
They're both encumbered.
Is on,
Encumbered. All Chromebooks are encumbered.
Okay. Oh, that was a change to the budget after that happened at the meeting
Yeah, we did
after
that
this was
after
printed.
the last meeting.
That's right. So that has already been removed from the budget by the schools.
Can we have a so I'm using the printout also, the one dated November 12th.
Yep.
What is the new recommended budget and new budget increase? Because I prefer paper.
For the total?
Like, do you have the updated totals on IT?
Were they not
Right, I
there?
know, I watched this, I did see that the school board made a reduction on some of the Chromebooks, so, but my paper doesn't reflect that.
The
so
updated
I have
files
an idea of what-
were shared.
Yeah, I have it.
Yeah, but I don't do Google.
All right, so let's see. If you're looking at the bottom line on page 6 of technology, the FY22 budget as of this moment is 355,563. And that results in a budget decrease of minus 75,945.
That's just the PDF that Mr. Zicki had shared.
Yeah, no, that one.
That's not the printout. That's going to be as of the actions that were taken on the 18th.
Yeah, there was a separate email with updated files sent that had that updated number. Care to withdraw your motion? I guess it wasn't seconded, right? So. Okay,
Do you need a second? I'll second.
let's see.
there's nothing I can cut.
It's already
It's already
removed.
been encumbered.
Yeah. Anything else on technology?
Just like to make a comment in regards to the technology, specifically around the Chromebooks. It would have been nice
Please.
to be able to vote on moving to the touchscreen Chromebooks instead of it being encumbered, but that's the way the school handled it.
Do we want to talk? That's not what happened.
I think the purpose of moving it is that we have heard the discussion about whether or not a touchscreen in grade level, where they're necessary and where they're not. And as we get closer to year end, we'll sit down with Pelletier, and we'll discuss and figure out what's necessary and make those right decisions at that time.
I guess my closing comment will be, problem is once you go ahead and offer it to the incoming fifth grade and ninth graders, and at that point, everybody's going to want one. And now all of a sudden we went from $250 a Chromebook to $350, and we didn't even have a chance to be able to vote on it. But that's the way it goes.
Was there a question from the audience or from those who are on remote WebEx? No? Anything else on technology before we move into special services? All right, we'll shift gears into special services, please. Any motions?
No motion, just a comment, and this is reiterating something that we said 2 weeks ago, but having an almost $80,000 reduction in a special ed budget is to be commended.
Absolutely. And just as a reminder to the committee, right, in this particular budget, it is returned to the taxpayer if it's not spent. Somebody want to confirm that though? Just.
I do remember that conversation from 2 weeks ago.
On the flip side, needs change, and this is budgeting on what we know now.
Mr. Chairman, I do have a motion.
Okay.
On page 6,
Okay.
line item 890 miscellaneous,
Okay, please.
would be looking for a reduction of $2,830.
We have a motion by Mr. Taylor. Is there a second?
Yes.
Give it to Mr. Leary. Thank you.
The specifics behind the cut would be the membership for title boxing and therapeutic riding lessons.
I don't line to say that those would be IEP driven.
Well, yeah, they are IEP driven.
While I appreciate that they're IEP driven, these are the same IEPs that were listed last year, and it was significantly overfunded. So while IEPs may be designed and designated, it doesn't mean that the services, by the time we get to the budget, are actually needed. So I actually had a note on mine that wasn't included, I believe, in the file, that I did feel that there was money in here that could be reduced.
I think you just might want to keep in mind too, that, and I'm sure everyone is, but last year was a little bit of an anomaly with COVID. We don't know how much of this money would have been spent in those last 3 months of the year that weren't spent.
Okay. Further questions? All right, we'll move it to vote. Mr. Hayes,
No, on this one.
Ms. Douglas,
I'm voting yes, based only on historical and not, but the lack of need.
okay, thank you. Mr. Hodgkins,
Yes.
Mr. Leary,
No.
Mr. Taylor,
Aye.
Mr. Sun,
No.
I am a no. Ms. Forty,
No.
Mr. Burke.
Nay.
That fails 360. Okay. Anything else on special services?
With this particular one, is this part of your overall travel
Yes.
discussion as well? I just wanted to make
Across the
sure that
entire
this one
budget.
was not a separate.
Yep.
I had a bottom line reduction of $8,000. I
Are
make
you
a
make-
motion to reduce the bottom line by $8,000.
Are you 80 or 8?
8,000, 8,000.
8,000, thank you. We have a motion by Ms. Douglas. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Leary. Okay, go ahead.
One of the accounts I was looking at was legal, and while I appreciate the unknowns, we historically overfund this. Looking at past expenses, the $3,000 reduction brings it in line with historical spend, as well as page 7, 330 is traditionally overfunded, might not say by a lot. So it's, I felt that $5,000 was a very conservative slice off the top, especially considering how much we have reduced these accounts in the past. I think $8,000 is a reasonable reduction.
Ms. Douglas, what page was that on again?
7.
Thank you.
I have page 1, line 355. There's an increase when in FY19 we used 3,000, FY20 we used less than 1. And due to unpredictable swings, it's anybody's guess as to where it's going to be. But I don't believe that the numbers or the history supports the current number. As well as page 7, line 330. It's not due to a lack of need. It's due to bringing the budget in line with actual spends.
So it's good to know that $76,000 cut in this category is not enough.
I don't believe I at all said such a thing. I was looking at the numbers. In the past, we've taken much larger reductions to this account. But I'm looking at the proposed spending, and yes, it's great. We had a reduction. Does that mean I don't look for more? Does that mean I'm obligated to stop?
All right.
Do I actually? Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. Further questions? All right, I'll call this one to vote. Mr. Hayes,
Aye.
Ms. Douglas,
Yes.
Mr. Hodgkins,
Yes.
Mr. Leary,
Aye.
Mr. Taylor,
Aye.
Mr. Sun.
No.
I'm an aye on this one. Ms. Forty,
No.
Mr. Burke.
No.
No. That carries 630. Okay. Anything else on special services? Okay, hearing none, we will move into business.
Food service.
Yep, I'm sorry, food service, yep. I didn't have that on my agenda, but I had it here. My apologies. Food service. Any motions? I know it's pretty much self-funded, right? Okay, then next up is facilities. Any motions? Okay. Next up is business.
It's in the essay, no. Out of order.
Business.
Business, yeah. Transportation? No? Oh, I see. I know food service and facilities down out of order. Okay. My bad. Next up is SAU.
I'd like to make a motion.
Mr. Taylor.
Page 1, line 610, supplies. Reduction of $500, please.
We have a motion by Mr. Taylor. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Hodgkins. I saw that time. Okay, go ahead.
Just, again, just the rate of increase going from, just a couple of years ago in the low 2000s up to 4,100 seems excessive.
So this is SAU, right? So is there a reason for such a large increase this year?
It's level funded with 21.
Right, but I guess looking over past years when we were at 2,500, do we recall why there was a jump?
I think there were different,
Yeah.
there's been different initiatives that have been taken on, different things that have been paid.
Yeah.
Just since Dr. Jetty came in over the past couple of years, just SAU funding different things. Also, those get reallocated to different areas for his assistant. It's a relatively small portion of the budget. When you look at the SAU, we're about 2.5% to 3% of the overall budget. operational wise.
Okay, further discussion? All right, we'll call the vote. Mr. Hayes,
Yes.
Ms. Douglas,
Yes.
Mr. Hodgkins,
Yes.
Mr. Leary,
Yes.
Mr. Taylor,
Aye.
Mr. Sun.
Yes.
I am a yes. Ms. Forty?
No.
No. Mr. Burke?
Hey.
No. That passes 7-0. Okay. Anything else on SAU? Moving into school board, please. Any motions on the school board?
I would, line 330, legal services. I'd like
Okay.
to make a motion to reduce it by $10,000. I just think it's a drastic amount of money we're spending.
We have a motion by Mr. Leary to reduce line 330. This is on page 2
Page 2, yes, sir. I'm
Yep.
sorry.
by 10,000.
Yes.
All right. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Taylor.
Can we just note that there's negotiations for 2 CBAs coming up next year? And 60,000 is probably not even close to what we're gonna need.
And if they go the way they went the last time, you'll easily spend that.
Again, it's just, it's a, from 2018 to 2022, it's a jump of $22,000. And I think that's just a crazy amount of money for an increase. And it tells me that we should spend more time in the classrooms and not in the courtrooms.
That's not courtrooms though, that's
Well, it's legal.
contractual negotiations.
Same difference. To me.
I'm assuming in 2019, when we saw the increase of 66.6, right, that was also the CBAs or the support agreements or one of them?
So we had, the teachers agreement failed, so that kind of continued into the fall.
Yeah.
And the support staff agreement was not reached, so that continued. That took 2 years to settle. There were a significant number of grievances filed during that time period by both associations that we had to defend. And so all of those, I mean, cost money. So we utilize legal services pretty cautiously, but we have to utilize them when we're defending against questions.
Okay.
So I would just ask the budget committee to look at the 19 actual and the 20 actual, which exceeded what we're asking for. And we're going into a year with 2 CBAs and all the other unknowns. So it's pretty conservative even at 60, I'm afraid.
I have a question. 2017, was that a year of 2 contract negotiations?
I was not here, so I believe that's when the support staff agreement was being founded. And so what are you seeing for an amount in 2017? Because I only go back to 18 in front of me.
74,000.
So that was
So-
that was the formation of the LSSA, I believe. So that probably helped to drive some of that cost too.
So my only thing is I'm inclined to support reductions. It's just based on the past history. I do think 50,000 probably won't be enough, unfortunately. I would like to see quick and easy negotiations amongst friends, but that's not what we've seen. So I don't know that 50 will be enough.
Yeah. I see that too. So 2014, we were at 44,000, 2015, 50,000, 2016, 56,000 thereabouts, 2017, 74,000, 2018, 40,000. So it's really been all over. If I take just the running average across all of this, we're at 56,000 and change. In my view, I appreciate the motion, but I think 60,000's a good number here. Okay. Further questions? All right, I'll call the vote. Mr. Hayes,
No.
Ms. Douglas,
No.
Yes.
questions? Yes. Mr. Leary,
Yes.
Mr. Taylor,
Nay.
Mr. Sun?
No.
I am a no. Ms. Forty,
No.
Mr. Burke?
Nay.
That fails 2-7. Okay. Anything else on school board? All right, we'll shift gears into HR, please. Any motions on HR?
I do.
Please.
330. Well, actually, it doesn't really matter. Bottom line for $525.
You're doing a bottom line for HR for 525.
25.
Okay. We'll do a bottom line budget or bottom line cut for $525 by Mr. Hodgkins. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Leary. Okay, go ahead.
I just don't agree. I don't agree with the increasing it over. Like I said, everybody needs to tighten up, and I think this is an area where you can.
If I could just respond.
Yes, please. This is tied to the 330 line. So yes, please.
So the full 525 goes back to that 330 line. And so Benefit Strategies is the company that we use to administer our FSA program. And our support staff were not taking advantage of that. So we've really promoted with the support staff that this is a benefit that's available to you and you need to utilize for, especially as we look to shift. Remember, the budget committee asked us to shift from the green plan to the yellow plan where there are deductibles. And so making sure our employees understand and can leverage the FSA program in that environment is really important. So it does cost $2.50 per employee per month. And so we budgeted the extra amount to make sure that we could take care of our support staff members.
And Benefit Strategies is the company that uses that manages the HSAs, the FSAs, the dependent care.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's a company right here in Manchester.
Yep.
And so we pay them the fee to administer those programs. And it's the right thing to do for our employees. So that's why that increase is there.
Sorry.
Just to, I think my question is pretty straightforward. Just to clarify, that increase is allowing support staff who previously didn't have the opportunity for those benefits to take advantage of those benefits.
Correct. And it's really critical with the shift in the insurance plan. So people will be assuming more potential personal expense. That remains to be seen on how each person uses it, but utilizing the FSA services to help pay some of those medical copays is actually, it's advantageous for the employees.
Thank you. Dr. Jetty, does the vendor charge based on the number of employees or the number of active users?
No, it's the active users. So we're eyeballing this, the $250 per employee. Holly, I'd have to do the math, but she said, I'm going to predict this many people will take advantage of it. So it's not the number that we have, it's how many people take advantage of it. So we could be off on that.
Sure. Okay.
I don't think we'd be off by too much though, because there's a relatively small number of support staff that utilize the insurance or are eligible for the insurance. So it is pretty, just from knowing who those individuals are in HR, that she's able to determine which direction she feels they'll go.
Projected about 17 people.
Okay.
One more thing to that.
Yes, please.
If I don't think $525 is a big number to swallow. And then again, if it's not used, where does it go? It goes into the general fund.
Okay. Further discussion?
I would make a point of clarification to what Mr. Jetty just said about the budget committee told them to change their insurance plan. I had a conversation with Mrs. Couture, who used to be the chair of this committee, and she said that they voiced that they were concerned about the cost, but the budget committee did not instruct them to change a plan. They don't have the authority to do so. So the budget committee kind of is getting a bad rap on that, saying it's their fault, when it's actually, it's not. Okay. Just a point of clarification.
Thanks.
Well, if I may clarify.
Well, but it's not budget related, right? This is more
We
what
have no
happened, so
authority.
we're going to table it. We'll call the vote here. Mr. Hayes,
Yes, aye.
Ms. Douglas,
No.
Mr. Hodgkins, Mr. Leary, Mr. Taylor,
Aye.
Mr. Sun.
No.
I'm a no on this one. Ms. Forty?
No.
Okay.
And so that one fails 4-5. Okay,
I'd like to make a motion
please.
on page 1, line 890 miscellaneous.
Okay,
I'd like to reduce that line item by $500.
we have a motion by Mr. Taylor. I will second. Go ahead.
Just taking a look at past history over the last couple of years
890 on page.
doesn't justify to the 1,500.
I know it looks like Dr. Jetty and Mr. Zibicki are just getting settled there. Any thoughts or comments on that one?
It originally was it had been increased by $500 to account for the ADA accommodations that we've had to deal with this school year due to COVID. Again, we don't know what direction what it's going to look like come July of next year. That $500 increase was reallocated to district-wide emergency management for better tracking, leaving it level funded at the $1,500. HR is a tricky area when you're dealing with the number of employees that we have, and having an HR department funded with $9,000 overall. I mean, is pretty tight in my mind. That's my only point to it.
Okay. Further questions? All right, Mr. Hayes. Mr. Hayes? Okay, we'll move to Ms. Douglas.
No.
No. Mr. Hodgkins, yes. Mr. Leary? No. Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Mr. Sun?
No.
I'm a no. Ms. Forty?
No.
Thank
All right, so that fails 2-6. 0. Okay.
2-6 or 2-7?
2-6 because Mr.
Hayes
Hayes
didn't
didn't vote.
Oh,
Anything else on HR? All right, hearing none, we'll move in.
I was an aye on that previous vote, so
Ah.
it didn't come through.
Okay, so yep, thank you. So we'll shift that to 3-6. Thank you. Okay. Next up is HR salary and benefits, right?
Nope. Food service,
Food service.
salary and benefits.
Yeah.
Food service personnel. And then
Okay, food service, please. Yep.
I have a motion.
Please.
Page 1, line item 112, administration salary. I'd like to reduce that line item by $1,750.
We have a motion by Mr. Taylor. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Hodgkins. Go ahead.
Just taking a look at the historical, just for the public record. 2018, 46,005, 19, 50,000. However, actual ended up being 55,000. And then 20 budget was 50, 21 budget 55, and now another addition of 56, bringing it to 56,750. As Mr. Leary, sorry, go ahead, Corey.
can I just note that the 56,750 is her salary this year?
Got it. Thank
So
you.
you'd be voting a cut because admin salaries go in the salary pool and get allocated at year end. So anything you see on an admin salary is this year's salary.
So can I ask a clarification question? So
Yep.
basically, anytime that you bring this to us, it's already in place.
In this case, when it comes to administrative salaries,
Mhm.
because they're budgeted as a bottom line increase as a percentage, the salary pool that you see in the general fund, that's at the discretion of the superintendent. So the ones that you see come across for admin salaries are going to be the actuals, because they were a bottom line when we budgeted for FY21, and then going into this year, that actual salary pulls across in personnel budgeting, and then we budget again in the salary pool, and that going into the next year. So in the admin lines, that's going to be your actual amount.
Okay, so I'll ask my question again. So at no point does the budget committee ever have a chance to vote for an increase in salary before it actually happens when it comes to administration? Is that correct?
We could.
No, you do in the bottom line.
Yeah.
Yes.
So typically for when we get into the salary and benefits part of this voting, obviously the lion's share of the entire budget, typically this committee has looked at bottom line voting on the entire thing. So
That's fine.
it's the will of the committee.
I think it's important to recognize too that increase is associated with the pool that is included in the budget. So our say really comes in the formation of the overall pool. And my understanding is that this increase represents the employee slice of that pool. So we do get a say in that we help to create the size of that pool, but it's up to the superintendent and the school board as to how that gets distributed. So what we see as an increase is the employees' portion of that distribution.
From last year.
So we have a motion and a second. Are we going to vote on this, or do you intend to recall?
I'll recall it.
Okay.
Focus on the bottom.
Mr. Hodgkins, call your second.
That's fine.
Yep. Okay. Okay,
Mr. Chair, question before we get into salary and benefits.
Please.
What is our current reduction thus far, Mr. Isbicki?
I would need to rely upon Mr. Zabicki at this
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
I was asking him. I'm sorry.
Tonight, let's see, you're at $60,100.
50?
60.
60. Thanks.
Okay, next up is moving into salaries and benefits, or would the committee prefer to tackle the travel and conferences first before getting into?
For travel first.
I anticipate a lively debate and discussion on salaries and benefits, so I would recommend we hold off until next week when we have time for that discussion.
Okay, great. Are you comfortable talking about travel and conferences tonight, or do you want to table that till next week as well?
I'm willing to have a discussion. I don't think that one will take 45 minutes.
Yeah. I'm
You
fine.
good?
I'm fine with travel tonight.
All right, so for travel and conferences, historically, and I know for the last several years, we've always looked at the bottom line for this particular item. This is specifically the lines 272 and 580 that are throughout the budget. And when we look at the total budget for the current year, for conferences and workshops, the total budget is at $49,388. And for travel, it's at $31,615. And so total, that is $81,003. That's budgeted again throughout the entire budget. And this is all 272s and all 580s. Looking back year over year, last year, there were some motions and some reductions to these lines as well. Last year, the budget committee approved $42,647 for conferences. And we approved $26,386 for travel. Now, it looks like there was some shifting around, which the school is entitled to do, which is why the numbers are a little bit different if you're looking at it on the Excel files. So last year, FY21, the total budget was $73,708. In 2019, the budget was $64,273. At 18, it was $81,842.
Can you repeat that again? Sorry.
In 18, actual was 81,842. In 19, it was 64,273. In 20, given COVID and everything that happened, it was at 43,890. And 21 budgeted is 73,708. And then 22 budgeted is 81,003. So to level fund it with last year, it would be a reduction of somewhere around $8,000. total.
And this is in the analysis file that the chair had sent. There's a tab specifically for travel and conferences.
Yep. Thank you.
I can't hold those many numbers in my head, so I gotta look at it.
So I know on the town side, when we looked at travel and to be just consistent in terms of our conversation amongst the committee, for most lines across the entire budget, we supported a 50% reduction of travel and conferences. Right, and so that would take this line down by about $40,000.
So I'd just like to make a comment on that, Mr. Chair. Certainly from the town perspective, we're looking at calendar year 2021 versus this rolling into halfway through 2022. So
Correct.
some of the assumptions that we made in the town budget was based on things that we are seeing right now as far as, the first quarter at least.
Yeah,
Travel restrictions versus this one's a lot trickier to look into that crystal ball.
it is because it's so much further out.
I
Fair
would
point.
concur with the logic.
I would have one question for the school as far as the conference and workshops. Do you have any idea in terms of how much of that money is required in order to maintain certification for any of the staff?
So that's going to really vary by staff member. So
Recertification is every 3 years. So it would be hard to gauge where each individual is on those credit hours along that recertification.
kind of what their needs are at that time. It's a tough one.
So I will make a motion to travel and conferences to reduce the bottom line of both 272 and 580 by $25,000. Second by Mr. Leary. And my discussion is, you're right, Mr. Taylor, absolutely, that we don't have a crystal ball. We certainly want to make sure that, there is adequate funding, planning out so far. This is not a 50% reduction. And I think that gives them sufficient funds to manage the program for the next budget year. That's my view.
Add to that comment, certainly when we take a look at as the running theme throughout the evening, just based on needing to tighten up the belt based on a loss of revenue. That's why I had asked in terms of how much of it was mandatory for certification needs in order to keep folks current. So.
Okay, Mr. Hayes or Ms. Douglas, any questions, comments?
No, pretty straightforward.
Okay.
So you're, just to clarify, your recommended cut is approximately $20,000 to the total of 272 and 580.
25,000 to the
25.
total, which is 81,000. So that would bring it to, I think I did 2,500.
Got it.
Yeah, $56,000, which is more than FY20 actual, and shy of a few thousand shy of 2019 actual. Okay. All right, I'll call the vote. Mr. Hayes,
Yeah.
Ms. Douglas,
Yes.
Mr. Hodgkins,
Yes.
Mr. Leary,
Yes.
Mr. Taylor,
Yes.
Mr. Sun.
Yes.
I am a yes. Ms. Forty,
No, I think it's too much.
Mr. Burke. That passes 7-0. Okay. I think what remains in the budget is salaries and benefits, which we can pick up next week. Are there any other comments or questions or budget items aside from salary and benefits that the committee would like to talk about?
Can I ask a question about salaries and benefits?
Please.
In looking through it, there's a lot of notes about the realignment of the offices, and I sat through the school board presentation. It's still not clear to me specifically what the plan is. If there's a way to get an outline, a flow chart, something that I can actually visually see what the plan is, with the numbers in the budget, because right now they're just numbers. I don't actually understand what you're trying to accomplish. So if there's something that you could help me out with that, that'd be appreciated.
Yep, we have that documented, and what it shows is the inequities that exist now and the equitable distribution of it after. So I'll share that to the chair.
Okay.
And we
Thank
can
you.
talk about it next week if you want to dig deeper into it, but.
I'm supposed to do my homework and have my questions for next week, so that's why I'm asking now.
I know, I would find it helpful if you were able to share with the chair, Dr. Jetty, in sitting through the presentation with the tech integrator positions and then how there were certain positions that had been reduced and then those tech 1 and 2 positions. You had gone through it a little quickly, and I think other people might benefit from seeing that laid out if you have that as well.
And as a follow-up to that, and also the school board meeting last night, Dr. Jetty, I know you had mentioned, and it's probably premature to ask for that, but that you were doing some research around a potential warrant article if it went that route, and what would it be 3? Would it be 1? I don't know if you would. Yeah, I don't know if that's information that would be ready by next week, but I think that could be helpful.
Yeah, we could try to.
I
So
know what we're gonna do.
so part of it is to see what the budget committee does and what's there, and then for the board to decide how they want to present the warrant. And it's tricky when you're talking multiple positions. If you say a tech integrator for this school, a parent at another school might say, well, I'll say no to that one because I want this one. But the flip side could happen, and the next thing you know, you end up with people just not really understand. So I'm trying to figure out how to tier it in a way that allows people. This is almost like, there's a term for it in elections, where you sort of force consensus around something. That's the way to get at this, and I don't know how to structure that on a traditional ballot. So we're working with legal to help us devise a way to make sure that it's a clear question and people know what they're voting on, and then the will of the voters is clear, which it could be muddy if you don't present it correctly.
Thank
So
you.
it's tricky, but yes, thank you. The flip side is you could just leave them all in and then it will be a non-issue.
We'll see what happens. I don't know.
As it stands right now, though, just point of clarification, the school board reduced it down to 2, correct?
Correct.
That's where it currently stands.
There was
is 2.
there was a motion for 3
Right.
that failed, and then 1 was removed.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Further questions?
Yes.
Yes, please.
I would like to get clarification on that one that I asked earlier about
Encumbrances?
Yes.
encumbered. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Moving into member input and new business. Any committee members have anything to add tonight?
Facilities improvements going swimmingly. I'm enjoying it and hope to have more to share soon.
Thank you. We'll shift gears into public input, please.
If I could just clarify my point in public input. So I've never said that the budget committee told us to change the insurance plan, but the mandate was from the budget committee to control insurance costs, that it's unsustainable to continue to have double-digit increases. You can't do that if you keep offering the same plan, because the same plan keeps going at double-digit costs. So, it's semantics to say that we weren't told to change the plan when the only way to control the costs, which was a directive from the budget committee, involved a change of plan. So in fairness, controlling insurance costs as a large portion of our budget was something the budget committee asked the school board to do, and the school board made that a high priority during negotiations with both the teachers and the support staff. So it was fulfilled by a request to contain those escalating costs.
Yes, but again, they cannot direct you to do it. And as Cindy Couture said, they just simply stated that they were concerned about the costs rising. Okay, you chose to do it. Okay, so it's your choice, and I wasn't on the budget committee at the time.
It's also past tense at this point.
Yeah,
right?
it is past
So-
tense at this point, but the budget, the people look at the budget committee and say, oh, you did this, you did this. There were some teachers that were angry with the budget committee. It wasn't the budget committee that actually did it. And again, like I say, I wasn't on it at the time. I was watching football at home, but they kind of give them a bad rep, and I don't think they deserved it.
Well, I would say it's doing what we were entrusted by the taxpayers to do, is to give the message about controlling costs when we can. I get where you're coming from.
Public input.
Yeah, I have one.
No, please, Mr. Hutchins.
Well, so far right now, I'm not exact numbers, but right around $80,000 is what we've done.
We are
85. Yeah.
85-1.
So in looking at the budget, they're asking for $455,000 more than last year as it sits. So we've only taken $80,000 out of that. And in a year where they encumbered a ton of money. And then when you try to take money out of it and the school is basically saying, well, we can't take that hit. We can't take that hit. And like I said, I'd like to get the information, but
Yeah.
I'm assuming that
Yep.
the school encumbers money every single year. So, I mean, keep saying, I can't take it. We can't take it. Yet you do, you actually can take it and you take more money.
I think it's important to highlight, though, it's a fair point, right? But 85,100 is the reductions made this evening on 20% of the budget, right? Next week, we're going to focus on 80% of the budget, which is going to be the lion's share, I think, of where the debate's going to be, and where really the costs and the dollars are.
Right. But if we go into that discussion saying, well, we can't do this because it's contractually obligated, then what we're not doing, in my opinion, we're not doing our job. We're not restricting the budget because it's contractually obligated and we have no say in that contraction.
Right, two of the items that drive that $450,000 plus are contractual. They're
Right.
teachers, right, I mean, they are, this is a teacher's contract and it's the retirement.
And I get that. And I guess the best way for me to say this is we're not on your committee. We can't negotiate. Like when we talk about negotiations, like it's not a budget committee. It's nothing it's not in our purview is what we kept being told. Right.
But what we can do, right?
So
is
that's my point is what we can do is I can't be part of your negotiations. I get that. And I can't tell you what to negotiate and what not to, but we as a budget committee can actually make our voices heard by saying, no, we're not going to give you the money. You made the agreement. Fine. Find it somewhere else because we're saying no to it. That's the way that we can actually affect change. Is if we don't, we're going to keep letting the same thing happen over and over again. And at some point, at what point did the taxpayer say we cannot handle this?
So there's two options, right? And there's really 2 points of discussion that will happen next week and when we vote the final bottom line of the budget, right? Is we will have 2 more opportunities to make reductions to this budget. One to salary and benefits, which again is 80% of the budget. And then once we vote the bottom line, if there's additional adjustments, and that could be adding money back in, which I did last year, right? Or further reductions if it's warranted. And so we can take a look at that big picture and see really where we're at in terms of current year versus future year and where we are for increases.
Mhm.
That's my thought. I don't know. Anybody else?
Well, I would say for some of the increases, I mean, we did have a say, those of us who were on the committee last year when the contracts, whenever that came down, my head is spinning, that, and some of us voted one way, some of us voted another way. And then the taxpayers got to vote, and that vote of yes or no on a contract has a lot of carry through that can increase and does increase a lot of the lines. So I don't necessarily feel it's fair to look just flat like level fund from a previous year when the impact of a contract was something that we did discuss the contract, yes or no, and then the taxpayers did get to weigh in, yes or no. I understand not everybody got, the outcome was not what everyone favored, but there was input.
What I would say back to that, though, and I get what you're saying, is did the taxpayers have a say in the money that was spent by the school? Money that was the 1.2 or 1.3 million that was encumbered. And I know you guys gave money back. I understand
How
that.
much money
But
did we
did
give back? What was the dollar amount we gave back? Over
the
$700,000.
taxpayers have a right a say on it all?
They
No,
did.
no, we didn't.
Yes, they did, Brian. They vote for the budget. So they do have a say when they vote for the budget. That's when they have the say saying, okay, we're giving you $23 million to operate your school district.
I get that.
Well, that's the say.
No, you're twisting my words.
No, I'm not.
You absolutely are.
Okay,
So
then
I understand you voted for the town voted for the budget. Yes, they did.
Yeah.
So when you didn't spend all the money in the budget, did the town get to say you get to spend money on this? No, you took the money and you spent it how you see fit because you encumbered
That's the way
it.
the budget operates. All right.
I
It's no
understand that.
different
So
than
you're not
town.
saying I didn't get a
Town's the
say in
same
it.
way.
Well, let's get
Exactly.
an
And I feel the same way
understanding.
about the town. I'm
Let's
I'm
get
the
an
same way.
understanding
I'm
of what your request is, right? I know Mr. Zibicki has confirmed that he'll look into it for us, and we can get that big picture for our next meeting.
Okay.
Go from there.
Sounds good.
All right. Any other comments or questions tonight?
I do have one question in regards to the overall 18.5 on that. Is there any way to find out how much of that is contractually obligated to the unions? As far as, the teachers are, how much of that?
The 18.
So
you
there's
mean the
18,500,000.
0.5 million as far as the.
Yep.
At the,
Oh, for the salary.
For the
The
salaries
salary
and
and
benefits,
benefits.
yeah.
I get you. Yeah.
can we find
What's
out how much is
Contractual
already contractually
obligation
obligated?
versus,
How
I can
much
do
is
an
not?
analysis on it. Yeah.
Thank you.
I think you'll find that it's budgeted off current
Yeah.
personnel. I mean, it's pretty close.
It's current personnel, yeah.
Because this budget in particular, just a little commentary, I've seen many school budgets. I've never seen one that lists every person, dollars. I mean, you can really see exactly where it's going with this budget. It's very transparent, very open. So those are actual amounts. Those are actual contractual amounts that you're looking at. They're not made up numbers. They're, where the salary grid is, where that person is. And that's how it's calculated and determined.
Each teacher listed is that's at the step, like their step increase plus the contractual increase for COLA. So each one that's listed, that's the actual number going into FY22.
Right. I guess
If we maintain the entire staff going into next year.
I guess to clarify my question, how many of them are based on the LEA or the LSSA that are already contractually obligated? And how much of that budget makes up your
Total.
fund to be able to decide raises for those that do not already have one baked into their contract?
So with the teachers and the support staff, it's budgeted at the raises that were approved
Right.
and that are in the contract. So that's already there. And then there is that salary pool for non-union, which are the people that aren't under that kind of a contract.
If
So
I could get a number as far as what that salary pool is, because otherwise any reductions would be.
it's one line. So I'm not going to find the page for you right now, but we'll get you exactly where that is so you can see that.
Okay. Anything else?
My question for next week would be how many positions are planning on leaving the district and what is the dollar amount of those positions? So we can decide
Yeah.
as a board.
I know you had budgeted 7 already,
That's-
correct?
We've been notified of 7, but they're not required to commit until April.
I didn't hear the last part.
They're not required to commit. They give their intent.
Yeah.
They're not required to commit to it until the time we issue contracts.
So you may not know.
So
So
for
anybody that comes in after, if we get a notification at this point, after November 1st, it would go into the 2023 budget.
I have a question. Forgive me if I've already seen this, but I'm living day to day. It's for survival here. The revenues for next year. Obviously, we have a decrease in projected enrollment. There's going to be a decrease in state and likely federal revenue. Do we have or have we seen what the anticipated revenues are for next year? Because just as much as spending has an impact, so too does revenue. And I think we need to look at the whole picture.
Yeah, the revenues are in all the sheets within that Google folder that's been shared. But I can put stuff on PDF and reshare out that way if that's necessary.
PDFs would be awesome because me and Google aren't friends. Thank you.
And I thought, just a point of clarification, next year's projected enrollment, I think, is an increase. Is it not? Isn't it 1309?
I'd have to pull that up also. We can,
I know it was 1300 this year. We're actually at 1225, but I thought next year, if I recall, it was 1309.
yeah,
Well,
I don't know.
okay, do current revenues then, are they the ones that are impacted the most by the 1225? Or is that number
Yes,
the one that's
'cause-
used to?
All revenue estimates as of November, I believe they came in November 1st, somewhere around that time. All revenues are based on what your average daily membership of attendance is as of October 1st of this year. So we have lost students at this point, and then they adjust those revenues as we go through the year.
All right, so when we got our tax bills, did those factor in the reduction in state revenue as a result of?
Based, your tax bill this year was based on the revenues that were received for last year.
Right, so even if next year's revenue or enrollment increases slightly, we're still going to see a decline in revenue because at some point we'll see an impact from this year's enrollment.
They
Whether that's
do,
in the spring.
your final state revenue is based on your final ADM on the date you finish school in June. So we won't know what that number is until June. And that will impact the tax bill next October. So maybe 1225 now, and you hit the spring and some kids come back into the district, that number could go up and they'll make the adjustment along the way. So all we have is estimates right now in terms of revenue getting through June.
Okay, so will we be able to see how that impacts the projected tax rate?
Yeah, we can do estimates on tax rates.
I mean, because it's not just the enrollment that's going to have an impact. We're going to also likely see a decline in the state revenue. So it's going to be a trifecta. So we need to actually, as we make decisions on spending, the question this budget committee typically asks themselves too is, what can the taxpayers afford? And so it's hard to really get a gauge of what people can afford if we don't know what the impact is going to be. So any information you can provide to help with that would be appreciated. Thanks.
We gotta take into account too, the impact of the 28% increase in valuation in the town. You know, so that has a major increase on taxes. So you saw the rate go down. And now, as it always works, the rate will creep back up until the next revaluation. So you gotta take those things into consideration as you go. We had a 28% increase in town valuation is a big jump.
Right, but valuations tend to be revenue neutral. So some people will see their taxes go down, some will see them go up, and some will see them stay the same. But overall, the end revenue is the same. It just, if everybody goes up 28%, your share of the slice still remains the same. So valuations don't matter much because they're only really used to determine your size. And if everybody increases at the same amount, your size stays relatively the same.
All right.
To answer the enrollment projection, so a year ago, we were predicting for next year to be at 1292.
Okay.
And honestly, that's probably a better guess than this year's prediction, which is like 1235.
Okay.
Because we have the COVID slump in enrollment. I'm confident that when we can restore to in-person services for everybody, people will come back and the numbers will recover back to normal. But I would say, 1275 to 1290 is probably a fair projection for next year. So it's a slight loss of revenue because we are at 13, or we were at 13. So it is a decreasing enrollment over time. And just today hit my desk a study that we had done relative to the school building projects, and that enrollment projection is also predicting that we're sort of level over time, maybe a slight decline over time. So it's not showing anything huge in terms of what's coming into town. Now, the other side of it is, if you drive into the newest development across the street, you already find 4 foundations waiting for a house to be on top of them, and foundations going in by the day. What does that mean? We do our best prediction on that, but that's going faster than anybody thought it was going to go. And so, and that's not the only development on the radar. So, we're currently, we're building residents in town. That's what the growth is. It's new houses, right? So new houses have people have children. So we're making a prediction, but you have to look at the reality of the what's going on around too. So we do our best with the numbers, and everybody looks at the crystal ball, but it's crystal ball work. When you drive around and see it has you say, are we getting this right? I hope we are.
To that point though, and this is from a budget perspective, I would encourage the school board to be discussing with the Board of Selectmen and the planning board, simply because the impact fees and the way they've been structured are not favorable to GMS as I understand it. So knowing that we're seeing developments to reduce the impact to the taxpayers who are currently here and to offset that by the taxpayers who may eventually be here, I would encourage you guys to revisit those discussions.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's on our radar so that we do intend to have that. We just pulled the numbers today. And the impact fees, I mean, there's decent money that's been collected over time that will help to mitigate some of the projects that the board is looking at. But I believe the elementary portion is only at $15,000. So that's not helpful because that's where the greatest need is. I'm not quite sure why it's structured the way it is. So we definitely have to have that dialogue, and we intend to do that. I've also never seen, so again, my limited experience, I've never seen a town that divides it by level either. It's usually a school impact, and obviously you're going to spend the money where the impact is needed. But this is in 3 buckets, and the most money is in the high school bucket, which is the least need. So it's a little strange the way it's being done, but we'll engage in that policy dialogue.
I'll just note that from my experience to Mike's point, that in my background, my audit experience with towns, this is the only town I've ever seen that does it in that way. I don't understand it. And I've probably audited somewhere between 50 and 60 towns. So it's definitely, that is one thing I will say that is kind of unique to Litchfield.
Okay. Public input.
How you doing, Chief?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, the only person left is Chief Sergeant, so nobody else.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. I will close public input and I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay. Well, I heard a lot. So I heard Ms. Forty, will second by Mr. Hodgkins. I'll do a roll call. Mr. Hayes?
Yeah.
Ms. Douglas?
Aye.
Mr. Hodgkins? Mr. Leary? Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Mr. Sun? I'm a yes. 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 That passes 9-0-0. Our first 9-0-0 vote tonight. Thank you all. We're meeting again next Thursday at 7 p.m.
Hi, Michelle. We miss you.